right, guys, welcome back to the show today. And I totally forgot to ask how to pronounce your name, and I'm very sorry. Is it Davin?
It's Davin.
Davin, I was 50-50 on
It's
it.
all good. It's all good.
We have Davin Topel from Real Spirits, and if you guys don't know about Real Spirits, you need to figure it out. They are a Blanco, Texas distillery, and they are doing some amazing things. And we have a couple of samples that he sent over graciously, and I appreciate you for that. We're going to dip into those, but we're also going to talk about some other things, some backstory stuff, some life stuff, because this isn't just about whiskey. It's about a story. It's about living the dream, which just happens to be in a glass as well. So, without further ado, let's go.
Here we go.
All right. So, where do we start? Let's start at the beginning. Why do this?
Why get into the world of making whiskey and right, all the
Yeah.
things that go along with it? My background, originally from Minnesota, moved to Park City, Utah when I was 21, but my upbringing was based around, well, my dad did a lot of the cooking and things like that, and so obviously for any young, child who looks up to their father figure, I kind of fell into that as well. I
Right.
really enjoyed cooking. I really enjoyed creating flavors in the culinary world. And I think it was when I was about 16 or so. We're over at a friend's house who he says he has nothing to eat, but there's all right. Well, there's a box of potato gratin here. There's bear meat in the fridge. There's some cheese and beer. All right, I can work with this. And that's kind of the creation side of things, just making
Right.
something out of nothing. That's when I kind of realized when, yeah, visiting friends' homes and like they say they have nothing, and I'm able to create something that is, in their minds is pretty phenomenal. And so again, it's just kind of at an early age, I really enjoyed the creation and amalgamation of flavors,
Hmm.
and working from nothing. And so that, fast forward again, several years later, moved to Park City, Utah. That always stuck with me. Moved in with a bunch of friends out there. I did a lot of the cooking for them there. Then we didn't have much. In fact, I think I made chicken cacciatore, but it was forced to be called rooster cacciatore that
Oh.
day.
Oh.
We,
Okay.
we,
Got it.
and it was a different flavor altogether, but
I'm
we made it
sure.
work. But then, I started living in Park City. I started off as a snowmaker, got into bartending, but then ended up over the course of 12 years doing a little bit of everything that a mountain town had to offer. I was a whitewater rafting guide,
Oh,
ski patrol, got into firefighting out there, and then eventually, um, after visiting my dad back in Minnesota, he got into making beer, and
okay.
we started on that conversation of how beer is made, how he's making beer. That I really started to think about making beer. But in that same conversation, after a couple of beers, we started talking about, well, I wonder how whiskey's made.
Right.
And that was it there. So as I'm starting to learn about beer just from that one conversation, it in that it automatically went to whiskey and started researching whiskey, and spirits in general and how it's made. Well,
Right.
and that's where I found, all right, well, beer takes about 6 to 9 months for it to, after you do all the things and the 60-minute boil and you sanitize all the things and everything's got to be super sanitary. Then it has to sit for 6 to 9 months. And then in that same research, how's whiskey made? Well, you ferment for 3 days and you distill it and you drink it. So, and so that's where I kind of started to get like, okay, well, this seems pretty easy.
Right.
Um, and again, yeah, I bought myself a still for my birthday back in 2009, and started making whiskey at the house for for myself and friends and family, and the smells and everything that was going on down down to the fermentation, the yeast, pitching the yeast, those smells. It reminded me of making bread and cooking bread, and then bringing those up to heat, those same kind of familiar smells of grandma baking bread, and that was it. That was the hook.
Right. Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
and ever since then, yeah, just playing around with final flavors, and eventually, Park City, there was a distillery that some people may know about. High West came into town, and a buddy of mine worked there and said, "Hey, you have a real passion in this. You should apply for the job. We have an opening." So I did, and that's where I started distilling legitimately, was through them. Learned a lot through High West in the microbiology. We propagated our own yeast.
Oh wow.
We created our own mashes and distilled. We were distillers. It was an amazing opportunity, and so and obviously we were blenders
Right.
at High West as well. So there was an all in kind of university at High West. And I was there for a very short period of time, about a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
And my wife and I found out that we were having children, or a child, our first child, and we wanted to move closer to family, so we opted to move closer to her family in Texas. Mine's again in Minnesota, and
Right.
we're warm climate people, and so yeah, we opted for Texas, and Austin, Texas to be exact, and it's been great. Got a job as a head distiller over at Real Spirits Distilling in 2016, and have been their head distiller ever since. Helped
Wow.
them build their program as they were trying to figure out what they were doing.
Right.
The original distiller, as you know, was Ty over at Andalusia, Ty
Right.
Phelps. He was doing some fantastic stuff, but he was still trying to learn what was going on as well in the malt worlds and the distilling worlds. And so there was a lot of experimentation going on when I
Right.
came in. And so they had whiskeys that were hopped, made from their beer styles and different barrel styles and different mash bills. And then he decided to start Andalusia, which is great. Their whiskey
Right.
is phenomenal.
Right.
I mean, it's a great representation of what you can do with an imagination and just passion. And so I took over at Real Spirits, and yeah, we did away with all the hops. I was a purist, and not to say Ty wasn't either. He was a purist as well, but he it was an opportunity for him to experiment and
Right.
find out like hops don't distill very well on the other
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
So yeah, I helped build their program of a making whiskeys from their beer styles minus the hops. The other reason I think I may have gotten hired was they wanted to do a gin, but when I was doing the original tour, during the interview, I looked at the still, and they have a potbelly, an alembic still, and I let them know, it's like, well, you don't really have the still to make a gin unless you're planning on sourcing outside vodka. Well, we're not sourcing anything. We just want a gin made from this. And instead of saying no, I said, okay, I can do that. And so that, I think, is what got me the job, was just the ability to think outside of the box. Like, just because you
Right.
don't have the right equipment doesn't mean that you can't create something. So
Right.
um, during those first initial gin um, experiments, I let them know, like, all right, with an alembic still, what you can make is what's called a Genever or a Genever. And this is a very old practice of making gin. It's gin's, the beginning of gin, where it all
Right.
started before technology kind of came into play. And so, and or I can make a higher cut point, and we can make a really clean, crisp spirit from that. So I made them these two different spirit styles, and of course they chose the one that was real clean and crisp. And I explained to them, like, okay, the it's I know it tastes good, but there's it's not a very economical way of making gin. There's a lot that's kind of being
Right.
put in, and there's a lot of money being put in, but not coming back out, because
Right.
there's a lot going down the drain this with these lighter cut or these tighter cut points, and they said they don't care. So I was pretty elated that a distillery would allow me to make something like that.
Yeah.
There's not many distilleries that would look at the numbers and be like, no, we want quality versus quantity. Typically, it's quantity versus quality.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so I feel like it's one thing that kind of sets our gin apart,
Right.
is the idea that we are making something that not just 98% of distilleries aren't making, in the fact that we're making gin from white whiskey, but the fact that I'm able to do it in an alembic still that pushes over all of those oils and all of those flavors, and making tight cut points to create a clean, crisp spirit, and the quality or the quantity be damned.
Yeah.
They just wanted a quality product that nobody's making, and I think we're doing just that.
Awesome. Awesome. Now you make me want to go get the damn gin. So,
I know. I was just, as I'm saying, I was like, shit. I don't think I left him a bottle of gin.
okay. Well, but since we're at a stopping point, I saw you open the bottle. What bottle did you open earlier?
So yeah, I was gonna, now that I could take a breath. Enough about me.
Yeah. No. No. We'll get back into the story. It's fine.
Now I opened up the bottle and bond.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
which I believe that you have a bottle there.
I do. I
But
don't have it. I don't have it sitting right here. I can go get it
yeah,
if you.
no, it's all good. I mean, we can
Sure.
talk about whichever whiskeys. I was
Okay.
just pouring something just to
Okay.
have, and
Okay.
it's
Well,
kind
well,
of been my
tell
go-to.
us, tell us about that one, and I'll crack open this one, and you can tell us about this one.
Yeah, so the Bottled and Bond is obviously everybody knows, aged 4 years, distilled in the same season by the same distiller, and aged for 4 years in a federally bonded warehouse, and proof down to 100 proof. The This is our first year of releasing the Bottle and Bond. This is a blend of two different whiskeys, three different barrels, and they are two rye barrels and one wheat barrel.
Okay.
And these were barrels that were left over from the blend that I made, making the Distiller's Edition, which we'll
Okay.
talk about here in a minute. I'm not sure what you
Right.
just poured, but
That
um,
was the distiller's edition.
okay. So the Distiller's Edition and the Bottled and Bond, um, these were kind of these came to a culmination because we can't make a bourbon, um, being that we lauter off our wort from our grain bed. We
Hmm.
are distilling off the grain. What that means, some of your listeners might know, but some of them might not. But
Right.
distilling on the grain versus off the grain. So typically bourbon is distilled on the grain, and what that means is that the mash is pulverized, the grains are pulverized, water's added, and it's fermented, and it's then put into the still, all of the bits and parts of the different grains and things like that, and it's distilled
Right.
on the grain. When you're making beer, you go through what a process called lautering, and what that is if malted barley has hulls or husks, and the germ and the all of the bits that are going to make the wort is encapsulated inside that husk. And as it's ground, those husks kind of make a grain bed that allow the wort to pass through. And then we put it's passed through another fine mesh filter that the wort is passed through. So we're literally just getting a sugar water or wort without the grain when you're making that beer process. This is very common and typical in the Scotch world. They lauter off their malted barley because it's possible. You can do that with a grain that has a husk. When you're talking about corn, rye, or wheat, those grains don't have husks. When you pulverize them and add water to them, they actually turn into a porridge, and they won't. You're not going to get that liquid out of them very fast or in a very efficient way. And so, being that we are making whiskey from our beer styles, we still utilize that lauter tun, and it makes a difference as to our final flavor whiskey versus other folks. And the reason being that if you distill on the grain, you're going to get different flavors because you're distilling those husks and those hulls that have tannins and things like that in them. It's neither negative nor positive. It's just a different style of distillation and different flavor. Now, that said, I really wanted to make some whiskeys that had some adjuncts in there, corn, rye, and wheat. And so I talked to our brewers about how much of any one of these I could possibly put into a mash bill, and the amount that is allowed that won't gunk up that fine mesh is 15% of any one of those. Okay. And so I was like, all right, great. Make me 3 different whiskeys, one with 85%. These are all 85% malted barley across the board, but then the other 15% in one whiskey is going to be corn, the other one's going to be rye, and the other 15% whiskey is going to be wheat. So we have 3 different whiskeys that are brewed, fermented, distilled, and aged separately. At the end of that maturation process, I now have 3 different flavored whiskeys that I am blending together to create what I consider a reverse bourbon, and that is the distiller's edition that you're drinking right now.
And let me tell, I'm going to cut in right there just real fast. This is obviously, with it being mainly malt, right? You still get that maltiness, but then it has that spiciness spiciness from the rye, but then it has the smoothness, maybe almost a little dustiness from the corn. Like, you can definitely tell they're there. It's very unique because it's not a bourbon, but it has a lot of the bourbon characters that you still want and need. And the cool thing is the wheat comes in there and kind of cleans everything up at the end too. So it's a real, and this is I've had this a couple of times in the past, and it's amazing. But this, to me, and being that it's at 58%, that helps a little bit because you can add a little water to it if you need to or whatever. But I think showcasing it at its natural cask strength. What proof are you going in the barrel at?
That goes in the barrel. I think that particular, I mean, they're all coming at, they were all different distillations. So they were 3 different distillations, and, at that time they were probably about 120 proof going in. Okay. And then at the end of the blend, they come out to be about 116. But yeah, like you said, it's cask strength because it's the distiller's edition. To me, is the way I explained it is this is a whiskey nerd's whiskey. I didn't want to dilute something that I wanted it to tell the story and change however the consumer wanted it to be. So if I proofed it to 112, you would never know what it would taste like at 116. Right. If I proofed it to 108, you'd never know what it was at 112. And so this whiskey is really meant for you, the consumer, to make and change however you want. This is
Right.
a concentrate, right, if you will, and
Right.
add water to
Absolutely.
it. Add a
Absolutely.
large. My favorite way to drink this is a large format ice cube,
Oh yeah.
um,
Yeah.
because it changes every time I take a sip. There's
Right.
just a little bit more dilution, and man, you're getting this flavor. You're getting this leather and the tobacco on the front, and
Mhm.
then as it starts to soften with a little bit more water dilution, that's where you're starting to get some of those, the caramel and the toasted marshmallow, and
Right.
and it just continuously changes as you start to drink it. And so again, that distiller's whiskey is that it's a whiskey nerd's whiskey, um, and I built that for y'all.
Well, let me tell you this. I am not one of those whiskey purists that has to drink it neat. Yes, I'm drinking it out of a Glencairn certified Texas whiskey, of course. But at the
Same,
same
same.
time, like I love, especially now that we're getting into summer, I love to sit on the porch after a long day of work, give me a big rock with some whiskey in it, and just sit there and watch the dogs fight in the front yard.
Right,
That to
right.
me is awesome. Or I bet this. I mean, not that I would want to put it in a cocktail, but I bet it's great in a cocktail as well.
We do it. I do it. I do it all the time. And that's the thing is it's meant to be whatever it is that you want. Throw a big rocks glass, rocks cube in there. Squeeze a little bit of lemon in there. Like, make it however you want.
Absolutely.
I just want you to try it at that 116, and then you know, it's just another ingredient. That's
Right.
all it is. It's still, always stems back to the culinary side of things. You're not going to eat, and believe me, I do. I love eating just raw peppers, but I also like peppers with vinegar and salt, and
Yes.
and
Yes.
but like I will eat that pepper by itself and it's fantastic.
Right.
But like this is also the beginning of something that can make several other things taste great.
Right.
And if I took all of those away and it's only good uh, by itself, neat, or in a cocktail, I've now robbed you of all of the other possibilities that are there when you want them, when you need them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's something a lot of distillers don't talk about. They don't talk about like, and I've had a couple of guests in the past. I don't know if you know Dad's Hat Rye,
Mhm. Yeah, I know
but
of them. Yeah.
yeah, but when I had him on, he was saying this whiskey that we make is made for cocktails. That's what we made it for. We don't not rapid age, but they only age it for like 9 or 10 months, and they're like, we got a good profile on it. It's meant to go in an old fashioned or something like that. So like it has enough power to do that. But like I tried it neat, it was pretty good neat too. So it's like
Yeah.
it's one of those things like the whiskey is just a tool to get you through the thing. But like, yeah, drink it neat, try it like the distiller said. Hey, do it like this. But then again, play with it. Try it with a big ice ball. Try it in an old fashioned, in a whiskey sour, a sazerac, whatever you want to try it in. Try it in all these different things and bring it out. Now, obviously, there's sometimes people don't want to try certain whiskeys, especially once you get into the allocated and the stuff like that, the stuff that's very expensive. You don't want to put Pappy 23 in a cocktail, which I would. I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and
But
exactly. Like, why not? Like, I would, and that's
yeah,
the whole thing is like breaking the stigma.
hmm
And it's again, these are just flavors,
yes,
but if I make a flavor just one dimensional and just that's how it should be, you're really limiting yourself.
yeah,
And
you are.
that's it's again, I just always go back to food. Like if you were gonna have jalapenos, but the only jalapenos that are available to you are the really light flavor, light in capsaicin,
Yeah,
like you've really limited yourself. Like, well, I've got guests that really want it hot. or food hot or something like, well, I'm sorry, I can't cater to you. Like you're just SOL, you know. Um,
Absolutely.
this is a concentrated. These are the flavors, and now you get to use your prowess and manipulate them however you want,
Right.
and uninhibited by what I think it would go good with. Like I'm making a whiskey that goes good with Coca-Cola.
Right.
This whiskey would go good with Coca-Cola. I would probably add a few other things, like a little bit, water it down a little bit or dilute it, and it would make a great whiskey Coke.
Yep.
Um, but I mean, there are in any cocktail book, there are recipes that call for a high cast strength, and now you can actually, oh, this is a whiskey and these are flavors that are going in this cocktail. Whereas, I can't do that if it's at 80 proof, straight up.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's really awesome that you offer it at that higher strength, because there's a lot of people out there that are just like you said earlier about the gin, they're just trying to get the most for their money,
Yeah.
the distillery especially, they're trying to get the most for their money, so they drop everything to the floor. They might put it at 43% or something like that, but they drop it to the floor, and release it, and everybody's like, yay, but it's for the whiskey enthusiasts and the people who are listening. They're the ones that are going to be like, hey, let me try it as it is. Let me add a little water. Let me put it on a rock. And a lot of the people that I talk to, which are going to be the more craft guys like yourself, they're like, yes, please play around with our product. That's what we want. That's
Yeah.
what it's made for. So it's
Yeah.
really cool that you offer it at the cast strength, but then it's not one of those things where you're gonna shame somebody if they put it on a rock or
Not at
something.
all. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's the thing. It's like it's not high strength to just be drank high strength. And I'm
right.
gonna I'm gonna turn my nose up at you if you do anything different. This is quite literally just it's a flavor that I created for you now to create.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so let's continue on with the story. So it's very interesting, and I don't know if I have talked to anybody about the whole lautering process or anything like that. So that was really nice that you brought that up, because it's a thing that happens a lot in different distilleries. So talk to us a little bit about your distillation practice. Is it a little bit different than a normal distillery would be, or is it the same? Since you have an
It's
alembic still, it's about the same.
It's about the same. The only
Okay.
difference, because we have a single alembic still, we don't have a large and a small. We are running our whiskeys are run through the still twice.
Hmm.
Our gin and totem, which we'll talk about in a bit,
Right.
those are run through the still 3 times.
Okay.
And so, outside of the traditional single distillation on your batch distillations with columns and things like that, we actually do run stripping runs.
Okay.
240 gallons of beer or wort goes into the still. We distill that 250 into about 40 gallons um, of low wines. That
Hmm.
means there's no cut points in any of that. Those 40 gallons will be put off to the side because it takes about 8 hours or a full distillation day. So we'll run 3 runs of low wines in a week, and then we'll have 120 gallons of about 140 proof alcohol that goes back into the still, which will then proof down with a little bit of water to redistill again. That the reason being is that we need to have those 3 different distillations to bring the volume up to refill that,
Right.
or just to have the volume to distill something a second time. So we run our still 4 days a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is a wash run. Thursday is a final run, and that's where we're going to be making our cut points. And that will, of that 120 gallons of low wines, will end up with about 40 gallons, or yeah, it's about 40 gallons of 140 proof
Okay.
spirit cut. Yeah.
So
we get about a barrel a day after
okay.
after that comes out, and we were to dilute that to barreling proof. We're able to, out of a 250 gallon still, we're not, sorry, I said a barrel a day. We're getting a barrel a week.
A barrel a week. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, because
yeah.
you have to do 3 stripping runs to get 1 spirit run, and then that 1 spirit run only makes 1 barrel. So you guys,
Right.
I mean, y'all are the epitome of small batch at
Yeah.
this point.
Pretty much.
And so, okay, let's talk about this, because this is something that interests me, and hopefully it interests everybody else. Tell us a horror story about distilling, about making like maybe you cut something too wide, or you went too far into the heads, or too far into the tails even, or maybe you put it in the barrel and it leaked all over the place. Tell us a sad story.
Yeah, a sad story or a horror story. So, there's not many of them. You learn from your mistakes.
Hopefully.
But, as you're, the worst things that have happened are very fixable. But the worst things that happened to me was probably overheating the beer. So
Okay.
when you're heating the beer, it's high temps, and if you don't catch those at the right time, you're going to be boiling not just the beer, but everything that kind of comes across, goes over to the condenser, and the condenser can't keep up with how heavy the boil is. If you walked away for too long in between your period, or you just forgot what time, things were probably going to start to roll over. And I won't lie, it's happened a couple of times. Come back, and you have vapor coming out of the condenser, and it's a very scary thing, because it's
Absolutely.
basically filling that room with high ethanol in a gaseous form. All that
Right.
needs is a ignition source, and that
Right.
can come in the form of an electrical outlet that's powering a fan, a light outlet, or an open flame. So yeah, we definitely have seen that once or twice. But again, those were earlier days, and lessons learned, and
Absolutely.
have not even the people that I have trained, lessons are learned for a reason. Even the people that I have trained have not seen that, and it's
Good.
because it is a very serious thing. And
It
if you've
is.
ever seen it, it's coming to God. So.
So on that same note, have you ever had? Because I know having a high malt content, you do get a lot of foam and stuff like that when you're boiling your for your first distillation. Do you ever get any pukes or boil overs on where you're having wash come out the other end?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely possible.
Right.
And the only time that's happened is those times that you walk away a little too long.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, again, you learn your lesson. I haven't had that happen too
Good.
often
Good.
besides those times.
And are you steam injected or electric element?
It is a steam coil inside the still. Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So we have a boiler that's running all of our the brewery, and it's the same boiler that's running our steam, not steam jacket, but steam coils on the inside of our still.
Yeah. It's on the inside of your bowl.
Yeah.
And so I got the pleasure of doing a tour. Last year sometime. Anyway,
Yeah.
And unfortunately for you, especially, you guys are kind of like the redheaded stepchild of real ale, because y'all are just like tucked away in the back. Here's a little quarter for you, but it's enough for you guys to get by.
Again, I've said it before. You do with what you got. Yeah.
Absolutely. Real ale is a pretty big operation. Is that correct?
The Real Ale is an extremely large operation, and has been making beer in the Texas Hill Country for 28 years.
Wow.
So it's the second oldest brewery in Texas. We just finished the build out of the new brewery in 2018. which took us from oh shoot, don't quote me on this. It was a 160 barrel system, and now I believe we're up to a 400 barrel system.
Hmm.
Brew house, it's all completely automated, built by Braucon. We still have brewers, but they're not humping bags and pouring, there's still a lot of humping of bags and things like that, but
Right.
it's not like the good old days when I first started over there. And there's still blood, sweat, and tears, but just not as much in the beer nowadays, which is maybe
Uh,
why it tastes better. I don't know.
yeah. 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 I mean, it's a beautiful facility. Like if you guys are ever in Blanco, swing by there. The facility's awesome. You can see they have this huge mash tun with a big hole. You can look down in there, see all the stuff agitating. It's really nice. Um, but yeah, you guys are running off a small still, and you're able to create a product that, to me, is, I mean, pretty freaking amazing.
Thank
From
you.
what I can say. So I have moved on. I know we've been talking a minute, but I have moved on to the Phoenix Rising.
Phoenix. Yeah.
So this is batch three. Tell us a little bit about this, and then we'll get back into your story.
Yeah, so the Phoenix Rising came about. So the Phoenix ESB has been a beer with Real Ale for almost since the beginning. But all good things kind of come to an end. Unfortunately, this was a good thing that came to an end, and it was just simply, I don't know if it's the American mindset of ESB stands for extra special bitter. And once
Right.
people find out what that means, it may turn them off on a beer without tasting it first. But as you know, you've been a long time real ale drinker.
Right.
ESB does not necessarily mean bitter.
Yep.
It is a phenomenal mash bill for a beer. And when I first started there, I always, wanted to make a whiskey from that. And then the day came that they were going to stop producing the Phoenix. And that's when I was like, "Are you kidding me? Well, it's just not selling. We're going to discontinue it." And that's where I kind of stepped in and said, "All right, well, before you stop this, we need to make one batch, at least one batch, to for me to make a whiskey from. So make a hopless batch for me to make a whiskey from, because that malt bill was phenomenal." And so they did. That was put into barrels, and we were approached by a, you know, it was a Class B, a liquor store that said, "Can you make anything that's over 4 years?" And I had explained to them, well, 4 years is a long time in Texas,
Yes.
and
Yes,
to
it is.
get up over 4 years is, well, we really, if we would really like it if you would make a 5-year whiskey. And
Right.
I had to explain to them, but again, you have a lot of other purists that are thinking along those and reading those magazines that 4 years and 5 years and 10 years are phenomenal. And it's like, well, yeah, from different states and different levels of a rick house, they can
Right.
be. But in those same states, a higher level, like, yeah, 10 years is way too long, and it's going to
Absolutely.
taste dusty and
Yeah.
tannic. And we can't really get it underground here in Texas to get it that way. And so it just started making me think about, all right, well, if we did do a 5-year, how can I, there's lots of different ways. Again, thinking outside of the box, there's lots of different ways that you can manipulate flavor and just curate flavor. And so what we did was that first distillation got us 4 barrels, and I kind of created this idea of like, all right, we're going to create a 5-year whiskey, and it's going to taste excellent every time. And it has to do with, blending and aging and barrel curation. And so um, 5 years is a long time to wait for a final product.
Absolutely.
And so this first one, what I came up with was, all right, so we're going to distill this first one, but then we're going to release whiskeys of these first 4 barrels. We're going to release them as single barrels, the first one at 2 years. So Phoenix Rising 1 was released at 2 years. Phoenix Rising 2 was released at 3 years. You're drinking Phoenix Rising 3. This is a 4-year whiskey. Next year we will release our last and final, or our final single barrel, which will be a 5-year whiskey. That will be where Phoenix will reside from there on out. So
Okay.
every year we've distilled a Phoenix since that first one. So that by the time we reach that 4th barrel, that 5 years, that'll be our next distillation's 4th year. And so we'll release that 5 year as a single barrel. Then next year, Phoenix will forever reside as a 5-year
5 year.
whiskey.
Got it.
Yes.
Got
And so these first 4 iterations are the only way that you're going to get these as a single barrel at a 2, 3, 4, and 5.
That's that, and I will tell you, and I don't know if you can disclose mash bill or not, and you don't have to, but like it is so different than the other one. This one is that one had a lot. Obviously, it had a lot of adjuncts. The distiller's one had a lot of adjuncts in it, so it had all that going for it. But this is so chocolatey and toffee and burnt toasted marshmallow and like all of those. Like it's very. I use the word unctuous a lot, but it's very unctuous. It's like it makes you want to go back for more.
Yeah.
And it's coming in at 46, which is right at the Scotchy level that everybody likes, and non-chill filtered and stuff like that. So to me, and I mean the color on this thing is beautiful. I mean it is beautiful. Yeah, no, I can't wait for the next one. Now that you said all that, I didn't know the entire story, and that's really cool.
So along with all that, again, the creation of a 5-year whiskey that's going to taste balanced and unctuous. I love the word. And consistent with these flavors. I really had to think about how I am going to fight these tannins that come in as you start to age whiskey for a very long time here in Texas. These tannins and these sharp flavors that come from that new charred white oak. And so the way I combat that is with French oak. So all of the Phoenix Risings have been finished in French oak. And they will continue to be finished in French oak because French oak kind of helps soften some of the tannins. It adds some other sweet biscotti characteristics as in different flavors. But for the main focus here is to smooth out a lot of the sharp edges that come with aging whiskey in Texas for an extended period of time. And so these Phoenix will come out of the barrel at 5 years, and it's going to go into a French oak barrel, and that's where it will be taken out when it's ready. And French oak, it doesn't take long for a new French oak barrel. We'll be reusing these barrels over and over again, but for the most part, it's just going to be based on, all right, when did it go in, what season, and when is it ready to start, for us to start tasting it and for it to come out. I'll be honest with you, these first 3, they weren't in the barrel more than a year. They were less than a year.
Wow. Okay.
The first one I think was only 3 weeks. The second one was 3.5 weeks, and I think this third one was maybe 5 weeks.
Wow.
It doesn't take much just to soften some of these things out. French oak imparts a lot of flavor very fast.
It does.
And so it's just something that you keep an eye on. It's it's baking bread. It's cooking.
Yes.
It's you don't just leave things in the oven for too long.
No.
You check on them every now and again. So often you stick a toothpick in your brownies to make sure
Yeah.
that everything is coming out right. And that's literally what we're doing, which is nice about our small batch distilling over there, is that we have the opportunity to um, dip into these every so often and pull them
Right.
when they're ready.
And that's really funny that you talk about that, because my next question for you was finishing options. If you've ever done any finishing, what you've just talked about for a joke, have you done any like sherry or port or anything like that? Have you done any of those?
Yeah, so we've done a lot of that. So we haven't released a double barrel in a long time, but I've been finishing whiskey in several different casks for since the beginning. Our first double barrel probably came out in 2016, and I think we finished it in a William Chris. The first one was a William Chris Orange Muscat barrel.
Uh,
Um, we've finished whiskeys in rumble barrels from balcones. We've finished
there you
them
go.
in port barrels. We finished them in Andalusia's peated whiskey barrels
There you go.
to add a little bit of smoke characteristic, and they're phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
all fun stuff to work with, and so that said, I mean, I've got several whiskeys that are still sitting in those finishing, and again, we're creating new flavors that I can now start to um, blend those different flavors together to
Right.
create different expressions, all in house.
Right. And that's what's so cool. Like your guys' Rick House is a couple of connexes. Is that correct?
Yep, it's a couple of those. Yep, shipping containers. They are ventilated on both sides and on the top, so the aging process is not in a Connex. If you close it off, it's going to get super hot. It's a hot box,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but we ventilate them pretty well in order to create an environment that is similar to the outside that it is on the inside. It's just going to be inverse. As it slowly heats up during the day, it's cool in the morning, and in the early afternoon in those boxes from the night, while it's hot outside, and it's slowly heating that up. And so the hottest point is actually as it's cooler outside at night, and
Right.
it's starting to slowly cool down inside those boxes. And um, the reason we want that is because heat, humidity, everything kind of those things have an effect on the grains of the wood, which allow that barrel to breathe and take in whiskey and compress, push it out depending on the temperature itself. And if it was too hot, it's going to be too dry. You're not going to get the evaporation of water out. And if it's too humid, water is going to enter, not allowing the ethanol to leach out, and you're going to end up with a flabby whiskey. And so we're sitting in the Texas Hill Country. We're sitting in a very um, ideal climate, and I can say
Yeah.
that because I did a study in our rick houses when I first started there for 2 years. I was meticulously taking temperature and humidity um, logs every day. And basically, at the end of the 2 years, I compiled those together and averaged them out. And I was, I had to do the math a few times. It's like, are you got to be shitting me?
Right.
It's like because we have such extreme highs and such low lows, but our lows are very short time spans. We're
Right.
below 46 for like 2, 3 weeks out of the year.
Right.
And then we slowly kind of get up, and we will get up into several 100-degree days. But the average in that year literally comes out to be 84 degrees Fahrenheit
Right.
and 63% 98% humidity, which if you look at a rick house or if you just look at ideal temperatures where people are climate controlling,
Right.
those were a degree off of what you would try to emulate if you were to have something consistently so that those barrels can breathe in and out.
That's so crazy. That's so crazy to think, because everybody talks about the Texas climate and the Texas whiskey and stuff like that. And really it's fairly similar. It's just some days are dramatically different, whereas a lot of those other places are pretty temperate, and they have a pretty temperate climate. It doesn't get super spikes, but like we can have a 40 to 50 degree swing in one day.
Right.
Especially if a cold front comes through, it can be 40 degrees outside. The next thing you know, it's 100. So,
right. And that's literally just that grain of that wood, quite literally just opening up as it gets hot, and as it swings, it's pushing it out, open, close, and it's just, we have these swings that are, as whiskey goes into the grains, it's stealing flavor from inside that grain, and as it compresses back out, it's pushing it into its hole. Yeah. And so we are in a very unique climate and ideal climate. And I mean, if whiskey was being made here at the very beginning, this would be the standard.
Yeah. Absolutely. So another question that popped up when you were talking about barrels: are you using new barrels or used barrels?
So we are primarily using new charred white oak.
Okay.
The American palate is very keen to new charred white oak. This is what we really kind of glom to. That said, I do reuse some of our barrels to age, and these are, again, just more blending components. They're going to take a little bit longer. Our first 6-year barrel, it's now close to 6.5 years.
Oh, wow.
Just came up, and when you think about it, like, okay, well, 6 years and our aging climate, 6 years is closer to 12-year in Scotland because of their climate. And things are really kind of progressing in a very positive way with those used barrels. And so, we do use our used barrels and new make went into those to just see what to emulate what's going on, those kind of lighter, drier dry fruit flavors that is going on over in the UK. But we are still getting a lot of the usual suspect characteristics of caramel, vanilla, but you do get some flavors coming from that initial new make as well, which is super cool.
That is
again,
cool.
By itself, it's fantastic, but in my mind as a blender, just like, oh, I get to, this is something neat and cool that, we can play around with. This is another color that I can create a palette of different colors that somebody's never seen before. So
absolutely. So that's really cool that you I mean, the owners, they give you the leg room to just be like, put it in a used barrel for 6.5 years. That's fine. Just let it go, because you have to think about it. Every 6 months or a year, you don't pull that out and put it in a bottle and sell it. You're not making money on it. It's just sitting there, not doing nothing. So the fact that you're able to do that and try new things and try all these, and you're not, I'm sure there's pressures, and every job has its pressures. I get it. But you have the constructive freedom to do pretty much kind of whatever you want. Just be like, hey, make it taste good. And that shows for having good partners that you work with as well. So that to me is really cool, that you have that freedom to just, hey, do it. Does it taste good? Great. Does it suck? Well, that might be on you, but still, it's a thing. Yeah, it's really cool. It's really cool.
No, it's
Okay, I got.
they've been fun to work with. Obviously, like they're like the folks over at Real Ale are they're like family. Real Ale will they're very Brad is very proud to be an independent brewery owner, independent distillery owner, and um, it shows. It's just we're all family over there, so it's a lot
Absolutely.
of fun to work for people like
Absolutely.
that.
Okay, so I have one more question and one more thing. It's not a whiskey. Um, let's get into this. Let's get into the totem. Now, guys, I want to preface you on this. This is not whiskey. If you can see it, it's clear as can be. So the question I have is not related to this at all, but it also could kind of be. So on your Instagram and stuff like that, you're constantly posting cooking stuff, which you've already talked about cooking, and also fishing. I didn't see any hunting, but I'm sure there's probably some hunting in there. So is that what you do as a pastime, or are you a guide? Tell us a little bit about that. I'm going to pour this in a separate Glencairn because I still have a little bit of the other one. I don't want to mess that up. And then we'll get into the totem.
Yeah, so I again, back to Park City, being a whitewater rafting guide, guiding has always been a part of my life. I moved here, and I moved here without a job, and just high hopes of getting back into the outdoors world that I had in Park City, and it didn't take long. Eventually, a buddy of mine, he owned a fly shop in Sattler and needed help uh, guiding a fly fishing trip. And there's not a lot of in Sattler. It's the Guadalupe River, and you row a
Right.
boat. And there's not a lot of people that know how to row a boat safely. And at that time, Guadalupe was running pretty heavy.
Right.
Heavier water. Not that it was crazy or anything like that, but if you make the wrong stroke, you can hurt your clients. And so he knew that I guided river trips and asked me to guide a fly fishing trip, which I took him up on. And that kind of just propelled me into guiding fly fishing trips. Then through, through that, meeting other friends that were starting a hunting outfit. I started guiding hunting trips. Again, I did all this for, on recreation in Utah,
Right.
but then found that as a legitimate job here. And so I started guiding hunting and fishing trips here in Utah or here in Texas. And to this day, I still guide trips. I will host trips, kind of point people in the right direction and get them in with the right outfitters, and take people down the Guad for trout, take people down the San Marcos and Lower Colorado for bass. But it's kind of more or less, uh, it's not my main gig right now.
Right.
Yeah, so, but it's still something I enjoy, and having a family, the only way that you're going to get out and do a lot of these things is if you're getting paid, and that's
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
so that's it's kind of my zen place, is to be on the river rowing a boat, or walking behind dogs in a field, and so if I can make a career out of that, that's pretty much what I've done. And so yeah, I still do those, again, mainly those hosted trips. So
Right.
if anybody's looking for to get out in West Texas for quail or trout fish in the Guadalupe, or New Mexico, Colorado, Minnesota, yeah, I'm your guy.
Well, I will make sure and link all your stuff down below. But so okay, so the reason I wanted to get into this totem is because this is the Whiskey Shaman podcast, right? And it was a tongue in cheek thing at first, where it was like, oh, I want to be your guide to the spirit world. That spirit being whiskey, right? But then now it's turned into like, hey, this is life, and this is, it turns into spiritual, and this particular beverage, this spirit, has some of those spiritual aspects to it, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah. So again, just being in the outdoors as much as I am, or as anybody would be, you do find a spiritual place on the water. You find a spiritual place in, again, walking in the desert. And so the word spirit, where it comes from, is, evoking uh, past and present thoughts, friends, family, and evoking spirits. And so I found out about, I started learning about mezcal a while back, but then I was at the ADI uh, at the ADI conference in Baltimore, and a buddy of mine introduced me to his friend who owned a mezcal bar there, uh, called oh shoot, um, Clavel, Bar Clavel. Look it up. It's a fantastic bar. Fantastic mezcal bar. And there, the owner, she introduced me to something called Pachuga. And Pachuga is mezcal that is distilled with nuts, fruits, berries, botanicals. At all the distilleries in Oaxaca do this. During Dias de Muertos, they take all those different botanicals, put them in distill, but the main component is that it's distilled with meat, or a protein. And that protein is typically Pachuga, meaning poultry breast. It's traditionally the breast of a turkey or a whole turkey raw in the distillation, but you'll have different distilleries depending on where it's their signature protein. You'll have some distilleries utilizing goat, rabbit, iguana, I've heard of. And so it really intrigued me being an outdoorsman and a distiller. I felt like when I was introduced to this is the spirit, like, wow, like I need to know more. This is kind of touching on too many home points for me. And so I did a lot of research and really wanted to create a spirit that was, obviously I don't want to, this isn't a mezcal. This isn't a true Pachuga in the fact that it's not made from maguey or from agave. Um, Mezcal is the Oaxacan people's national spirit, and I don't want to take away from that. But what I
Right,
did
absolutely.
do, I wanted to adopt the distillation practice because me as an outdoorsman, as a forager, as a distiller, that distillation practice spoke to me. And so that's
Absolutely. Yeah.
where I really took a deep dive into what this spirit was. And so it's distilled once a year in Oaxaca during Dias de Muertos, because there's so many different things that go into it that are hard to come by. And you're not going to produce this over and over again. It's only brought out, so this year's distillation will be brought out the next year. So what you're drinking the day of Dias de Muertos is last year's distillation while you're celebrating. And then continuously throughout the year, you will bring that bottle out for different life events, weddings, quinceañeras, birthdays, things like that, to evoke good luck and prosperity, right? And so I really loved that idea as well. You're putting your heart and soul into this distillation of something, and that's, again, that kind of spoke to me. So along those lines, I created a ritual of my own that kind of spoke to, again, the outdoors. And what you're going to do is you're going to take the spirit, you're going to pour it into a shallow cup or a copita. But before you do that, you're going to there's nothing that speaks to the spirit to anywhere outside of Texas. There's a lot of Texas in here. There's
Right.
peaches from Fredericksburg. There's lavender from Blanco, dewberries from our property. The hog that I hunt for this. Sorry, I didn't even get into that. So the protein that I use for ours is a hog that I hunt every year. And so
That makes it super special.
yeah, it's a different hog every year, and I use that hog to feed my family, but I use a proportion of that in the distillation. But so there's a lot of Texas already in that spirit. But say you're going on a whitewater rafting trip in Utah, there's nothing in that spirit that speaks to Utah or that uh, binds you to that land. And so what you're going to do, no matter where you're having your adventure, you're going to get a local honey. Uh, Bees do the foraging for you all over the world, and
Amen.
they turn that local flora into nectar and turn it into honey. So you're going to take that local honey, rim your glass with the local honey, pour the spirit in. Then what you're going to do is you're going to light the spirit on fire. It is 110 proof, so it will readily light on fire. But the lighting of it on fire awakens the spirit, lets it know that you're about to partake in the ritual. You're then going to put the flame out, not with your hand, but with something, another cup or something like that. You're going to lick the honey, drink the spirit back, and the honey is what binds you to the spirit, to the land, for good luck and prosperity in whatever adventure you're about to partake in.
That epitomizes a distiller's magnum opus right there. That, like I talked to, I don't know if you know Alan Bishop from, well, he used to be with Spirits of French Lick, now he's not, but he said that absinthe, if you made it absinthe and it was good, that was like your thesis in distilling. But I feel like this is as well because it's basically the same thing, only you're using protein as well. And then the ritualistic part of it, which people can take that in a negative connotation as well. You're not, evoking demonic spirits or anything
No,
like that. I don't know.
it's an
To me,
appreciation. It's an appreciation of everything. It's an appreciation.
absolutely.
It's me paying respect to everything that
Yeah. Yeah.
that I collect and put in there. That's the way I look at it.
So in this, and you have listed on the back everything that's foraged. I remember when we did the tour and got the in-depth thing, they were talking about the bottle brush. Am I correct about that? The bottle
Yeah.
brush, how it was specific to the gin and this. It's never been in another gin. Is that correct, or is it you had to get special approval for it? I
Yes.
don't remember.
As far as I know to this day, but I know when we first started it, almost 9 years ago, we are the only distillery that uses the leaves of the bottlebrush tree. This tree is native to New Zealand, but it's grown all over Texas. It's an ornamental plant. Some people may know it, but it grows flowers that look like a bottle brush, something that you would stick into a bottle and swirl around to clean a bottle. Beautiful red flowers, but the leaves themselves, um, they lend a kind of a fruity menthol flavor, and
Yes.
we are we are the only distillery that utilizes them. I think to this day. Um, I know back in the time when I first started utilizing, we were because I had to do some pretty rigorous FDA approval for them, and they almost didn't get passed. They wanted us to do $2 million worth of research and
Oh God.
6 years of $2 million research, and it's just all right. Well, forget that. But the gal that I was speaking with over in at the FDA, she was able to find it as a grass certified botanical grass,
Okay.
meaning generally recognized as food safe.
Okay.
Um, she did find it under its scientific name, which I
Okay.
am not going to remember what the heck that is.
Come on,
Point,
man.
point being, I know, yeah, it would add so much to the story. Point being that she did find it, and it was only being used as a cosmetic in a shampoo or
Oh,
a
okay.
facial cream or something like that. So they did recognize it as being a consumable product, but somebody already did that research and got it passed, thankfully. And so that being recognized, they were able to allow us to use it in the gin, but she quite literally said that it's only been used in a cosmetic. It's not been used in, I mean, she can see a list of the things that it's been used in, and alcohol is never, or even any food product was never on the list. So,
Okay.
so that's
That, I
our,
mean, that to me,
that's what I consider our house botanical. We kind
right.
of pioneered that in the spirits industry.
And I can tell you, and I don't know if it's just you saying that, I can definitely tell it in the spirit. Like, okay, so let me go into the spirit because most people aren't going to even understand it. It's like all the good parts of a gin. If you like a gin, it's all the good parts. The herbal, the lavender comes through, but it's not like over. It's not like soap in your mouth lavender. But then there's that minty quality to it, and you don't get the like when people think you put pork in there, you're going to think it tastes like bacon. It doesn't taste like bacon, but there is a oiliness to it that just kind of coats your mouth. And there's like a drop left, but it just gives you like it's so refreshing and like I can see how you would want to pour that for people as they got married or at I hate to say at a funeral, but at something like that where it's like, hey, this will help lift your spirits because it's very I don't know, reviving almost like, and I know that sounds stupid, but it's like uh, the spirit equivalent of an energy drink, if you want to call
Yeah,
it that.
yeah,
It's very strange. Obviously, it's not whiskey. It's not even doesn't have any whiskey flavors at all, other than that oiliness that's kind of left over at the end, where it just kind of coats your mouth. But all the flavors in there meld so nice, and I can only bet that you're hello, almost broke my chair. That I'm getting excited. I
yeah.
can only bet. I can only bet that your gin is just the same. Is that correct? It just doesn't have the pork in it.
Yeah, so gin is very much the same. Subtract the pork with juniper, right?
Right.
So the gin has juniper in there, but it is a very citrus forward gin. It's what we consider a new world gin as opposed to a dry old world
Got it.
gin that
Got
is
it.
more juniper forward.
Right.
And um, yeah, again, we kind of cater to the American palate on that as well.
Right. Okay. So we talked about finishing. You can't do full on bourbon because of the lottery. What are some of the other? You can't really do vodka because of your still setup. I guess you could, but it'd be a very oily vodka and it would have a lot of flavor. Correct?
We could do vodka, but we would have to source the vodka and redistill it at the yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of pointless. Okay. So last question, I guess, would be. I hate to even ask this question sometimes because it's like nobody really knows. But like, where do you see not only yourself, which I want to know your story because you are part of Real Spirits, but at the same time you are yourself, and I don't want to tie you to one thing. But where do you see yourself in say 5 years, and where do you see Real Spirits? Because by then you should have some very well aged product. Where do you see the future of not only Real Spirits but yourself?
So I think I've shared with you before, but right now I'm consulting for Real Spirits, so I'm curating the barrels, curating the blends, curating
Right.
new products and things like that. I have another fantastic distiller, Aaron Hostetler, over there that is overseeing production, and he's doing a
Okay.
great job. And they don't necessarily need me there every day.
Gotcha.
It's kind of nice to kind of be freed up, not just for me but for them, to be allowed to help build them up in different ways. And
Right.
so I think, right now, 5 years from now, um, I see myself, yeah, I see Real Spirits being, and you know what, I'm not going to say it, but or I'm not going to say it, but I see that, kind of coming hand in hand with the brewery. This is what I would in my um, in my vision, I see Real Spirit uh, coming up to meet with Real Ale Brewing Company, and
Got it.
the magnificence of what Real Ale is, because we do have a lot more um, people who are drinking healthier. Beer is kind of on the wayside, but it's still very much, it's a part of my life. It's a part of a lot of our lives. But that
Right.
healthier drinking, people are changing their palates and appreciating whiskey a lot more than when we were younger. When we were younger, it
Absolutely.
was a lot of shots. I didn't even appreciate
Yes.
whiskey. It was like, all right, have a whiskey, like, and it was just shot back. I didn't like, you didn't
Right.
taste it. Like, I don't want to taste it.
Right.
And now people are having a more of an appreciation, and also the margins are on it are better when you're talking about grain, water, your resources to your
Right.
output is much better. And so I see Real Spirits kind of becoming more of a more, again, walking hand in hand with the brewery itself. Me myself, I see myself working with not just Real Spirits, but I'm currently I am consulting for another distillery in North Carolina.
Okay.
Um, there is a I'm helping them build from ground up a distillery that is going to be um, growing its own corn, growing its
Oh,
own grains, growing. We've already got apple orchards in place. There's going to be a vineyard in place. And phase one is to build this distillery that is going to be making bourbon, apple brandy, malt whiskey. And phase two is an apple cidery. Phase three is a full vineyard out in 104 acres out in North Carolina.
let's
Um,
go. Yeah.
Again, yep. It's in the Blue Ridge Mountains of the North Carolinas, and it's um, so there is going to be a big outdoors factor in there as well, which just kind of speaks
Absolutely.
to, yeah, everything that I am proud to say that I love doing. And so 5 years from now, uh, we'll have that uh, up and running, and probably onto new, bigger projects with them and several other distilleries.
That's it's so awesome that you're able, and I'm speaking for you, not for Real Spirits, obviously, but like it's so awesome that you're able to come in and help a company turn into something and say, hey, this is what you need to do. Keep doing this. Move forward. Always look ahead. Maybe you can do 2 barrels a week now. Whatever.
Yeah,
Working double shifts or whatever, and then move on and help somebody else because that's kind of what life is all about, right? It's about helping people and about spreading your knowledge, whatever that is, spreading your knowledge a little bit to somebody else, and then you start another distillery. Well, you don't really start it, but you help them start a distillery, and then it grows into something that's huge, and then you look back after 20 years of doing this or 30 years of doing this, and you're like, hey, I helped so many people create their dream, and that's that's kind of the dream job you're living right now. I hate to say it like that, but like it's really awesome. You know, it's one of those things like you started out just like, hey, this might be a thing, and then now you're helping other people say, hey, this is a thing. Let's go. Like it's really cool to hear that already. In such that, I mean, to you it probably doesn't feel like a short time, but like, you know, in life it's a short time. You're also doing real estate, is that correct?
I am, yeah. I'm doing ranch real estate here in Texas.
I didn't know if I was supposed to talk about that.
No, that's fine. No, please do. I was like, oh, am I gonna have to bring that up? Thank you for bringing it up. Anybody in Texas who's looking to buy or sell their ranch? That's I am specializing in that. Again, that's something that I've found myself. I'm already in the outdoors. I speak the language. I appreciate the land and see it for what it is and can be. And so getting my ranch real estate license was just one of those, that's silly that you don't have that. And I feel absolutely. Like it was silly for me not to have it years ago, but I always got to look back and, you know, it wouldn't be the same had I gotten it years ago. I'm such a different person than I am now, as far as that goes. And so everything happens at the right time for the right reason. But yeah, so I'm doing ranch real estate here in Texas. And I just, you know, on your point of, you know, having the dream job, I just, you know, I can't not say like anybody can do this. Anybody, no matter what it is that you want to do, anything, you know, everybody always asks, how did you get into this? How did you get into that? How did you get into this? And just listen to everything that I've said in this podcast. It's quite literally just, it's out of passion. Don't give up on your dreams. Continue to push towards whatever it is that you want. And you'll find that if you just surround yourself in these situations, it's not a fact of they won't just present themselves, but you'll be in a position to be presented to. And that's why, you know, you, Randall, like doing what you're doing with the podcast, it's important. You're pursuing your passions. It pushes you into different places that you never would have thought. And I'm sure it's already, you're already seeing that.
Absolutely.
And it just, passion begots passion, and it just keep on pushing and following it. Quite literally, I'm at where I'm at because if you know, a simpler way to think about it is, again, I said it before, is, hey, I'm not going to get paid to go fishing every day. I'm not going to get paid to go make whiskey every day, unless you pursue it.
Right.
Like, wait, that's exactly what I want to do. I want to get, you know, I don't want to not get paid to go fishing. Like I'd rather get paid to go do the things that I love. And so just pursue your passions. Don't let anybody tell you that that's stupid. Don't let anybody tell you. I'll be honest with you. Even I get it. I still get it to this day. The real estate thing was a new thing for me, and I've had people very close to me tell me that you don't have what it takes. Forget it. Don't do it. It's not gonna work.
Right.
And you know what that does?
Pushes.
Lights a fucking fire.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing. That's how you have to look at things. And you're gonna come across those people, and don't let those comments or those people, even though, I mean, like I said, that person is extremely close to me, and was dead honest when they were saying it. And like, don't let them be water, let them be fucking gasoline.
Absolutely.
Don't let all that shit be gasoline to what it is that you should and what you will be doing.
Yep. Dude, those are strong words. They're strong words, and those are words we need to live by, because like, it's real easy just to go through life, living your 9 to 5, doing the thing, going to the job that you hate just so you can have those 48 hours of your weekend to do what you want to do. Like screw all that, bro. strive for what you want to do.
Yep.
You know, they say a person who loves their job never works a day in their life. That's kind of BS a little bit, but it's not. If you choose the right job, like I've picked my job because out of necessity, right? And then now I'm like trying to pivot a little bit, and everybody's like, "Well, why are you pivoting?" I'm like, "Because this sucks and this is cool. Like I want to do this thing. Why would I want to go bust my back digging ditches all day when I could go over here and talk to cool people about whiskey?" Like to me, that's a no-brainer, you know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, everybody wants to poo-poo that, and everybody wants to say, "Well, there ain't no money in that. There ain't no." And I'm like, I'm not doing it for the money. I'm doing it for the love of it, and the fact that I get to talk to cool people, and the fact that I get the opportunity to be around like-minded people, because everybody that I've talked to, yourself included, along with many others, we're all in the same boat. We're all like striving for something more than what we had, but yet we're not fully at our potential to where we are, where we need to be. So it's like, it's super cool, like, to hear your story. And I appreciate you so much for coming on. And this has been an amazing ride. And we got a little spiritual there, and it was awesome. And I appreciate it. I mean, because you can't talk about spirits without getting a little bit spiritual. So,
Exactly.
so I appreciate, and y'all stick on real fast. I want to talk to you, but y'all, thank y'all so much. Thank you to the sponsors, Bad Motivator Barrels and C. Smith Whiskey and Mixology. Thank you so much for hanging out. If you need to get a hold of me, Whiskey Shopping Podcast at Gmail. And we do have the Patreon. You know, if you want to buy something, it's fine. Until next time, keep your spirits up.
Peace.